Hey guys, today's video we're going to be talking about 5 Rogue Company tips to help you dominate the competition. First things first, you're going to want to use cover. This may seem very simple, but the amount of players that just run out into the open is very high. And with Rogue's dodge function, you can save from sponging enemy bullets in close to medium range engagements. It's often best to plot your route before you make a mad dash to the objective. So if you're not, planning ahead, you're going to want to use this cover. Not only are you going to keep a low profile, which makes you much harder to hit, you'll also be able to catch exposed players that are aggressively rushing, doing the same thing that we're talking about with this first tip. Even if you end up getting downed by an enemy player, you are covered behind cover, so you're not going to be exposed. A teammate can come over, res you, whatever they need to do. Now with this next tip, we're going to be talking about instantly finishing off downed enemies, which happens if you manage to successfully deal enough lethal damage to a player, they will go down. It can be tempting to finish off any helpless opponents, but you're you're not using that to the full ability. If you leave them there, you can use them as a kind of a sponge of the enemies. They'll come try to revive, and in the end gain you more kills, especially if you down that player in a more open area where there's no cover. Also, if there's a downed enemy being revived, you can then rush them, because the downed player is in a helpless state. They can't do anything to you, as well as the person reviving them. They're stuck in a screen where they are loading up the revive, bar to revive that player, which means they're helpless. There's no gun out. You can rush them, finish them off. You got 2 downed enemies. With this third tip, we're going to be talking about flanking. Rogue Company's maps all feature various routes players can take in order to sneak behind enemy lines and launch a devastating surprise attack. Pulling off a well-coordinated flank can be the deciding factor to win a round, or maybe even a game, particularly when you manage to get the drop on any unsuspecting foes. While you can use any character to flank behind enemy positions, there are a few who really shine when going deep into enemy territory. For an example of this, Lancer's quick and quiet ability drastically increases her movement speed, silences her footsteps, and grants her immunity to enemy radar abilities. This is the perfect character if you need that flanking, character on your team to go rush around and get the surprise attack on them. With this 4th tip, we're going to be talking about spending your money wisely. Now, Rogue Company has an in-game economy system, which if you played games like CSGO or Valorant, you'll be familiar with. So at the start of each round, you'll be able to spend your hard-earned cash on weapons, perks, ordnance, upgrades, anything that you need to do to help you win. Now, in order to gain this money, it depends on what you've done the round before. This can depend on things like eliminations, assists, playing the objective. All these things gain you money that you can spend at the end of each round. This moves on to the next point of spending it wisely. Certain upgrades are going to cost more than others, and upgrades, all these kind of things are, what are going to cost the most other than the base kind of thing that you're buying. So obviously you're going to want to spend it wisely, not dump all your money into maxing out your weapon. You want to use it on how the game is being played. So say if the enemy team is hiding behind cover, you're going to want to invest in some grenades and maxing out those grenades, maybe instead of just maxing out something else like your melee. It just doesn't make sense. You want to be very wise with how you spend your money. On the contrary, if you're on the losing end of the game, you're not doing too well, you might want to save your money up a little bit instead of spending it all after each round. Save it up, buy something big, win the game. Now this final tip is probably the most crucial one if you want to get good, and that is communicating with your teammates. Now, if you're serious about increasing your win rate and just demolishing your enemies, you're going to want to talk to your teammates. In game, there is a ping system that can work just fine to call out, spots where they might be. You can call out where enemies actually are. But if you really, want to win, you're going to need to talk to your teammates. You're going to need to discuss positions, discuss flanks, call out enemies, stuff like that. Just getting by with the ping system isn't always going to work. It's just not. You don't need to be constantly talking to your allies. In fact, simple shoutouts just like enemy locations, their movements, communicating your motives, what you're going to be doing, where you're going to be flanking, is plenty enough to get wins. You don't need to, be talking the whole game. In fact, it's probably not best, because that kind of muffles out the footsteps of enemy players. So, simple callouts are fine. You don't need to go overboard, talk the whole match. These simple communication tips can, difference you between a lower tier player and a higher tier player. And you just gotta plug the mic in and start talking. That's all you gotta do. And those are my personal 5 kind of beginner tips and tricks for Rogue Company players. There's definitely much more in-depth tips and tricks you can learn, and I'll be sure to go over them. But if you're just starting off Rogue Company, you're gonna want to do these 5 things to secure wins. Thank you.